Prahasha. How are you? Welcome to the Hands Up for Trad TV. I'm delighted you could join us today. It's been an incredibly busy start to the year for Hands Up for Trad, with a calendar packed full of exciting events. We've had the thrilling Battle of the Folk Bands competition, congratulations, Dauntless, followed by the prestigious BBC Radio Scotland Young Traditional Musician Award. Congratulations to Ellie Beaton. Then Shacking the Gaelic, World Gaelic Week, and just last week for International Women's Day, we released Hands Up for Trad's annual Women in Music and Culture list. If you'd like to find out any more about these initiatives or our upcoming events, or even support Hands Up for Trad, please visit our website at www.handsfortrad.scot. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by one of Scotland's most accomplished trad musicians, Jenn Butterworth. Jenn is widely recognised as one of the UK's leading exponents of traditional folk guitar and has been a central figure in the thriving Scottish folk music scene for many years. In 2019, she was named Musician of the Year at the Scottish Trad Music Awards, and she's been involved in numerous celebrated projects, including the BBC Radio 2 Folk Award winning album Songs of Separation and her work with the acclaimed Canaris Quintet. Today we'll be discussing her exciting new venture, her debut solo album, Her by Design, which was released on the 20th of February 2025. So, without further ado, let's welcome Jenn Butterworth to Hands Up for Trad TV. Hi, Jenn.
Hello, how are you doing, Simon?
Oh, I'm great. This is just really exciting to be chatting to you today. What was the initial spark or inspiration behind creating Her by Design?
I guess I've always been trying to find songs that I connect with and that feel like they resonate with me. And of course, being a woman, I guess that was something that I really wanted to sing about, women's experiences. So I think that's why I ended up doing this.
Yeah, and as you say, the album does focus on women's narratives in folk music. In the current state of the scene, is it important to you to highlight these stories?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I do think that I'm lending my voice to a wider movement of people who are singing about women's experiences now. I think that the songs and stories weren't perhaps collected as much in the past, so there isn't a kind of rich sort of, I guess, diverse amount of songs to choose from, and finding the ones that are there and also trying to write new ones is a really nice way to sort of shine a spotlight on that, really.
Yeah, it is something I find very interesting as well, trying to find tunes written by women before 1950. It's now impossible at times. It's a really interesting thing and something we really have to concentrate on.
Yeah, I think so. And you do wonder sort of, were they, like, they must have been getting written. But did women feel like not as strongly about being able to share their music back then? Or was it just not seen as important? I don't know, there's so many different things to think about.
Yeah, I suppose we'll never know, to be honest, actually. But so the album opens with Sandy Denny's All Our Days. And so what drew you to this particular song as the opening statement for your debut?
So a few years ago, I was reading her, one of Sandy's biographies, and I was listening to her kind of back catalogue at the same time and just sort of, just learning a little bit more about her life. And as I was sort of listening to some of her back catalogue, this song appeared, and it's like this huge orchestral arrangement, absolutely stunning. And there was something about the harmony that she'd used in it that was very, I guess, like pastoral in a way, but really, really interesting. And I loved the imagery in the song. So it's about, the reason why I chose it was that it sort of places humans as all equal on the planet, and you sort of zoom your lens back to just look at the human race as one before zooming into the issues of women, if you know what I mean. So it just leapt out at me when I was listening through Sandy's back catalogue, and I thought it was amazing.
And that's very interesting, because I think the arrangement that you have made of the song is really strong. It isn't a brilliant start to the album. It leaps out of you. Of course, you've produced this album yourself. How did you think about that? How did you move forward on that? And was the experience different from your other previous recording projects?
Yeah, it definitely was. I think all the other previous recording projects that I've been involved in have been quite live. They're based around bands that I actively work in, or, like stuff that you can all play together on stage. And for this one, I approached it very much from my guitar and my voice at the center of everything. So all the tracks began with just the guitar and a guide vocal, and then everything was layered on the top. And I guess that's how all our days came about. But a really important person to mention in the process of that is Shona Aitken, who is a totally incredible string arranger. And so I demoed all the tracks myself and layered up stuff during the pandemic when there was nobody else to play with. So it was like putting, little synth textures that could be string ideas and things down. And then all of that sort of energy shape I gave to Shona, and I was like, go for it. You have complete, freedom to do. Like, just like, don't hold back, And she didn't. And I'm so chuffed with what she came up with and what every other member of the band brought to the project as well. That was really, really important.
Yeah, I recently did some work with Shona, and you're absolutely right. She was just wonderful. She was fast. Just all the ideas she came up with. I gave her charts and everything, and she added to it, and she made everything better. She's an absolutely brilliant musician. Who else has played on the album?
So Shona formed a string quartet with Kirsty Orton, Patsy Reed, and Alice Allen. I've got in the sort of like rhythm section, there's James Lindsay, Signe Jakobsdottir, and Louis Abbott on sort of percussion and kit and bass. And then I have my partner Keir Long is playing a load of like analog hits on top of stuff, and there's a guest musician, Tom Gibbs, is playing piano as well. I don't think I've left anyone out there. I hope I haven't, but that's it.
And did you make the album yourself? In terms of, did you fund it yourself?
I actually got support from two places. So Creative Scotland gave me part funding because I really wanted to spend some time like learning how to be a producer and generally upskilling as a musician so that I could be more useful and productive in all the projects that I work in. So I was really lucky to receive funding for them for the album, but also for some like CPD work as well. And then it was also part funded by Patreon, by my Patreon supporters. So I teach guitar lessons online and talk about the album, and they've been luckily with me through the whole process, supporting me in that way. So that's an amazing thing to have. And then the rest of the project, which inevitably grew arms and legs, was self-funded.
Yes, what would we do without Creative Scotland, I have to say. But also Patreon. What's your Patreon address if anyone wants to come along and back you?
Just patreon.com/Jenn Butterworth. 2 N's in Jenn.
Amazing. Well, you'll get that link below and as well if you want to support Jenn. Why not? Moving away from your album for just now, you're known as one of the UK's finest folk guitarists. Who were your earliest influences or mentors?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when I was younger, I grew up playing in folk sessions, and we went around all the UK folk festivals with my family. So I think I just spent a lot of time watching a lot of them, I guess, like more grassroots players in the pubs, and and just sort of very slowly pieced together what it was that they were doing, and then I spent a lot of time listening to old records as well. My folks had an amazing record collection from back in the sort of 70s and 80s. So like Nick Jones was like Penguin Eggs album was played an awful lot in the house. And then I guess before I moved to Glasgow, the recorded music that was out at the time was the sort of early Solus recordings. So of course listening to that kind of powerhouse of John Doyle's playing, but then spending loads of time in Glasgow with the accompanists that were working in the session scene there, and then most recently Anna Massey actually learned a huge amount from spending time with her playing as well. So loads and loads of different influences were all over the place, but yeah, it's kind of amazing to have.
Yes, and I mean, as touched on earlier, you do so much, and I mean, creative producer at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland.
Yeah.
And amazingly, you received recently the Outstanding Contribution to Teaching. What's your approach to nurturing the next generation of traditional musicians?
That's a good question. They're just such an inspirational bunch of people. Like there's around about 70 students approximately in the trad department at RCS at the moment. And I guess the longer that I've been teaching, because I've actually been teaching there since about 2009. I was probably only in my like mid-20s really when I started there. And then over the years, when I've become sort of more confident, I guess I can look at an individual person and try and put myself in their shoes about, what they want to learn and what I feel they could learn to enhance what it is that they're doing. I think, yeah, I've become much more experienced in that recently, and I guess I just try and keep track of each of them in some shape or form.
I know, Chris, you are a typical musician as well, working on the scene, and as we all know, it is a portfolio career. We have to do lots of different things, and I suppose it's interesting, and it's interesting for any young musicians up and coming out there. You know, they will have to do lots of different things, and so how do you balance your roles as a performer, recording artist, and educator?
Yeah, that's a tough question, isn't it? I think for me, it's a little bit like a game of Tetris, and everything just somehow fits together. And I compartmentalize, into sort of like maybe half days of what I'm spending my time on. But it is just like spinning a load of different plates. And I think a really important thing is learning, um, like the best way that you work, whether you're somebody who can write a big to-do list with loads of different things on and just kind of tick them all off as you go, or whether you need like a specific focus for a bit of time. I think everyone's brains work differently. And for me, it's just like a kind of bit of a juggling act, jumping between different things. Having the building at RCS to go into and getting into the mindset when you're physically in the building is, I think having different workspaces, even if it's just a cafe or a library or something, like going to different places sometimes can help you get your brain into that other space.
Now, for the past, I think it's 3 years now, you've been the accompanist in the BBC Radio Scotland Young Traditional Musician Award, which is interesting
Yeah.
because I'm not really sure what date it was, but you were in it in the very early days. You entered the competition.
Yeah,
I've got
years ago.
black and white photos of you somewhere. what what does the role entail, and are there any sort of particular challenges in accompanying musicians? There's so many different instruments and songs, and
Yeah, absolutely. And trying to do what you need to do to support everybody's individual style, I think is quite a challenge and something to step up to. And I think another thing is to try very hard to not get in the way. I think the key skill of being an accompanist is to do your thing, and to be satisfied about what it is that you're doing, I guess, in any project that you're working in, but also fully support and don't get in the way of particularly the contestants and the performers in the young trads when it's very much their show. To enhance what it is that they're doing. So yeah, I think the yeah, spending time supporting the performers, making sure that they feel totally safe and not worried about what it is that we're doing, teaching them about what the capabilities are of different musicians and the realities of jumping in and literally only having like 2 hours before you have to go on stage, and what the best is that you can do within that time frame is a really important thing to learn. Yeah.
I mean, and on a practical level, you know, at the semis you have 12 musicians.
Yeah.
How how do you stay organized, and how do you remember everything?
I'm very good at taking notes. That's the thing. I'm not great at remembering things because I've always been the person who takes the notes, and I think because of doing that, unfortunately, it means that stuff sticking in my brain. Once it's there, it's fine, but getting it in my brain is quite a challenge. So yeah, I think just with the semis, with there just like being 12 performances back to back and only having specifically 1 hour that you're allowed to spend on each performer, I think that is quite a huge challenge. And being clear, I think, with the performers that if we're still practicing something or getting something right during a sound check, there's probably a very small chance that we're actually going to get it right on the gig. And it's just finding these workarounds that still make it feel really good, even though we can't quite grab every single little detail that we want to grab.
When we were, I was talking to BBC Radio Scotland the other day there about the 25 years of Young Trad, and I was asked to name some of my favourite moments for the 25 years, and still, it's a very recent memory, is when you broke a string on stage and you managed to change the string and come right back in at an amazing point. And I think I loved it. That was so clever. Actually, the thing that was so exciting about it was the crowd's reaction and the crowd's understanding of how you managed that.
Yeah, and I just think it was amazing that Sam Mabbott, who I was playing with, just kept that power going. And he looked at me and he was just like, everything is fine. And, you know, because he didn't know if I was going to be able to come back in or not as well. And so, but I kind of started changing this thing. I was most amazed at the fact I didn't knock my DPA off and have to like reconnect all my microphone and stuff after I had frantically like flung my guitar about changing a string. But
Yeah, definitely kudos to Sam Mabbott. Actually, he did really well because that's the kind of thing that could really throw a musician. Kudos to the crowd as well for actually knowing what was going on. It was such a big cheer. And even that never threw Sam. It was a fantastic performance all round. So, as we mentioned before, you're involved in numerous collaborations, you know, with Canaris Quintet. You play regularly with Will Pound, and you also had a duo with Laura Beth Salter. How do you approach all these different musical contexts?
I guess some require more, like they're bigger projects than others in terms of sort of, I guess, organization and planning. Like the more people that you've got, the more tricky it is to keep everything sort of like moving forward. So, yeah, Canaris Quintet is it's a big machine to be working in, and I totally love that. And when we write music together, we can create these like totally amazing interweaving arrangements. We're spending this month like writing new music. It's been really, really fun to get in depth with all of that. And then Will and I live at opposite ends of the country. So he lives in Winchester now. And so the only time that we can really rehearse is when we're on stage. But we deliberately keep it that way because the spontaneity is a big part of our show. You know, that whole challenging each other and deliberately not quite knowing so that you have that freedom. I think you have the same thing when you play with Dave and with Ian, that sort of, you have a skeletal idea, but you need that freedom to be able to go places and say what you want to say. So we're quite different in that way. And Laura Beth and I, we're really organic, and we spent a lot of time playing together in the pub, actually. Over years and years, we got to know each other. And now it does feel quite natural, and we keep it quite organic, but we do like to plan somewhere in the middle of Canaris Quintet, me and Will, you know.
I do love that thing about working with musicians that you played with for years, actually since you were quite young. I just love the innate understanding, which is quite hard to achieve as you get older and with new people.
Yeah, and I totally love that. I love this idea of groove and trying to find like where, you know, if you're playing with somebody new. I played with a couple of fiddle players over in Seattle recently at a teaching thing, David Greenberg and Mary Black. Really, really different players, and it was fascinating to be like, right, we've only got 10 minutes here. And I just like trying to get as an accompanist into the sort of groove and the timing and the style of each different player and find a little sort of like spot that you sit in. I love that so much. I think it's so cool. I think every tune player is so different, you know?
I think that's also testament to your great skill, Jenn, if everybody wants to play with you. So, you know, looking forward, will you be touring Her by Design at all, or will it be sort of more select performances alongside your other commitments?
Yeah, to be honest, carving the time out is quite tricky when I'm already working in a bunch of projects that are touring. And also, I spent so much time on this album, on the production and on the sound that I wanted to create, that I sort of wanted to leave a little bit of time for people to really hear that before me going out and playing maybe versions of it, but not actually the thing that I've spent all this time creating, you know? There's something quite funny about that, how we try and make a version of an album, but then people hear that more than they hear the album itself in a way. So I'm leaving a bit of time for that, but I'm also building a solo show with a little synth. And I'm just, I'm programming MIDI parts that will play at the same time as me playing the guitar. So it sort of fills out a little bit of space, but it's still all in real time and part of a show that I'm building. So I've got my first gig with that on the 30th of March at Twickfolk down in London. And I guess that's the test. Like, they've taken a total punt on me just to see what happens. And I'm really looking forward to that. So, yeah.
Oh, that's it. Listen, I mean, me and you, we've been from the start of lockdown when we started the Hands Up for Trad Music Club, and you were right there at the start with me trying to work out how to broadcast live over the internet and and I remember in that very first broadcast how you were doing that amazing thing with the looping on your guitar, and it was really interesting. So you're already set up for all that kind of stuff, and it's really interesting to think what this little keyboard's going to do.
Yeah, I'm kind of enjoying it. I think it's that thing about trying to find something that doesn't take away from the guitar. You know, it leaves me and my guitar very much in the center, but it's just this tiny little extra thing. So it's difficult deciding what the parts are. Actually, that's been quite. I'm still shaping them at the moment, so it's going to be a work in progress for a while. I'm enjoying it.
Oh, that's exciting. So that's one thing that's up for you. What's next? What's up for you after this releases? You mentioned the recording material with Cannabis. I suppose that if that's going to come, will that come out this year or later or next year?
I think more of a long-term thing. I think finding time. Now we're a bit older and we have a few more commitments and things to juggle. We're carving out the time, and because actually writing in the pandemic was quite stressful, and not as organic as we really like to work. So we've been refinding what it's like to make music together in the same room, I guess. And so carving out that time with Canaris has been quite important. And after that, I'm heading on tour to Australia with Will Pounds, actually, at the beginning of April. So that's going to be, I'm quite excited about that. I've never been to Australia before. I don't usually sort of travel quite so far away. I'm usually kind of, home bird. So I'm, but I'm really looking forward to it. I've got a couple of festivals and some gigs over there. So looking forward to meeting some new people and jamming some new music.
Oh, that's wonderful. So to finish, going back to your album, Her by Design, what do you hope that listeners will take away from the album?
I guess on a basic level, I just want people to be moved by it and have an experience that they connect with. Of course, there's like a theme of women there, and thinking about the role of women in trad music in history is something that I totally love. And I also feel the connection that female listeners have with music. Actually, interestingly, looking at my stats so far, like my audience is quite overwhelmingly men. And I think possibly I've spent quite a long time as a guitar player. It's quite a male instrument, and I feel like maybe that's why. But I would just love more women to connect with it and find resonance and feel more seen in traditional music as a whole. That makes sense.
Well, that's what we all aspire to, and it's a wonderful thought. So if anyone wants to get a hold of Jenn's album, you go to jennbutterworth.co.uk, and Jenn is also available on Bandcamp if you actually want to pay some real money for the album, rather than 0.0001 pence. And I totally recommend it. We played it on the Foot Stomping podcast, the first track, the other day there, and it's a worth listening to. So thanks very much, Jenn. It's brilliant for you to join me back at Hands Up for Trad TV, just the way we started.
Thanks very much, Simon. Thanks for having me.
Okay, we'll see you next time.